Well, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy making a historic wartime stop in Washington to thank the U.S. for its continued support. His visit comes as lawmakers weigh another $45 billion in aid for the war-torn nation.
The Russian tyranny has lost control over us, and it will never influence our minds again. Your support is crucial, not just to stand in such fight, but to get to the turning point to win on the battlefield.
Rebekah Koffler is a former U.S. Defense Intelligence officer and the author of Putin's Playbook. And before we started this, we were all sitting here just kind of talking. You know, there were some differences in the way Zelenskyy kind of gave himself up, yesterday. It was not the same Zelenskyy that we have seen. Why was that?
I completely agree with you. Well, here's why. Zelenskyy is a very, very astute politician. He's talented, he's savvy, he brought everything to the table, and especially his skill. He's a former actor, right? He understands that he's asking a lot from the American people. The American people are very generous, but let's look at this. What we have already provided and are on track to provide is reaching 50% of Ukraine's GDP. And this is not the end of it, right? $750 billion will be required to rebuild Ukraine if the war would ever stop, which there's no end to this war, at least on the horizon. And the Pentagon itself has acknowledged that. And so Zelenskyy knows that he needs this help, and therefore he was measured, he was passionate, he didn't lecture. There were no videos that he usually throws out there showing horror movies, trying to invoke emotions in his audience. So he's very, very talented.
Yeah, he didn't want to guilt Americans. Now, the Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov responded. He's saying, quote, weapons supplies continue. The assortment of supplied weapons is expanding. All this, of course, leads to an aggravation of the conflict and, in fact, does not bode well for Ukraine, the classic Peskov veiled threat. Where do we stand? What do you think Russia does? Escalate now?
Well, Peskov is a classic, Putin's propagandist, right? But it doesn't mean that he is not talking sensibly. So what we have right now is a war that is unwinnable. Why is it unwinnable? It's because all of the three parties to this war, Moscow, Kiev, and Washington, have unachievable goal. What Moscow wants is to secure control of Ukraine. It is unachievable so long as we provide the superior weaponry to Ukraine. They can't secure a military path to victory. Ukraine cannot win either because it doesn't have nuclear weapons, and Russia does. Ukraine gave up theirs under pressure from Washington and London back.
They regret that, by the way.
Exactly. and so Putin has developed, or rather on his orders, a very unique warfighting strategy was developed of escalate to de-escalate. And if Putin feels that he's losing this war, he will trigger that doctrine of detonating a low-yield nuclear warhead on the territory of Ukraine. And let me give you a little backstory.
That's frightening.
It is frightening, but this was a war game. Back in the intelligence community, we had scores and dozens of war games, and every single war game ended up in that scenario. And this is exactly why President Biden stated in the beginning of this war that the United States will not deploy U.S. and NATO force into the theater, because he understands that. He warned us about the nuclear Armageddon, right? And so that is the conundrum. So no matter how many billions we pump into Ukraine, it will not produce a victory. And in the meantime, Ukraine is being destroyed, it's been depopulated. 100,000 of Ukrainians are either dead or injured, according to U.S. military estimates. And so what we're doing right now, we are paying for European security with Ukrainian blood, because Europeans themselves do not want to contribute towards their security. Only 8 countries out of 30 contribute 2% Imagine that in Germany, the richest country in Europe, does not want to contribute into the collective defense kitty. We do. The United States provides the majority of the funding.
Right. Okay. Rebekah Koffler, thanks for getting up with us this morning. It's good to see you.